Welcome to Unfiltered Finance. My co-host John D'Agostino is here with me, and today our guest is Joseph Perla. Joseph, pleasure to have you on today.
Hello. Nice to be here, Ron and John.
So you're calling in from San Francisco. Why don't you tell us, our audience, a little bit about yourself?
A little bit of myself. I have been a lifelong entrepreneur. I went to Princeton, studied computer science there. I started a company while I was there. It was focused on basically a social network for high school students applying to college, and actually dropped out a couple times to work on startups. And things have been pretty fun. I eventually ended up in Silicon Valley for a couple of decades, building companies and working at, I think, world-leading companies like Facebook and Lyft.
And I know is Turntable the new venture, or that was the prior venture?
In 2011, I founded Turntable.fm, and that was the company back then. The new ventures is also Turntable Labs, but the main product is Hangout, which is a product launched just a few months ago, but it's gotten a lot of attention from Gen Z. They love it.
And for those who are not familiar with the product, why didn't you give us an overview of the product?
So Hangout is I think one way to analogize it is Instagram is a social platform that's really focused around images and photos. And Reddit is a social platform really focused around text, AMAs, text, things like that. And so Hangout is the first social network really entirely focused around music, the music first social platform. And so when you start designing around that real focus, you start to realize, well, what's music about? It's about really listening together. So when you go home and you invite people over, you always put on music, right? And at a cafe, there's always music playing. Anytime you socialize in a club, bar with DJs, you play music. And why do people do that? Because it gets people in sync, gets people on the same frequency, gets them to really connect. And so how do you use music to help people connect on a social platform? Well, you actually just play music together live so that you're all listening at the same time, whether you're in the same room or even if you're remote. That synchronization, that connection really happens because you're all listening to the same thing, because you're talking about the music, because it's all inspiring you in the same way, even if you're not talking about the music.
Hey, Joseph, that's really awesome and inspiring. I was a big fan of Turntable when it came out. I think the evolution of it's really amazing. I'll note that you kind of started that whole description with the image of people in a room together. I think you actually used those exact words. So I guess I'd love to hear your thoughts on how important that physical connectivity is, because we moved away from it for a long time, and I think business models adjusted and say people don't, they don't care about buying from a human being anymore. They don't care about the biological extension. They don't care about being in the same room anymore. And we went through a period, I'd say, late aughts, like early, like 2015, like it was like peak human connectivity is irrelevant. And most of it, or at least the majority of it, can be replicated by digital interaction.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a little bit of a zeitgeist shift back, and that just may be my Gen X desire to read into what's happening. But I'm kind of curious to what degree, when you're thinking about starting these companies today, how much more versus, say, 10 years ago, you factor that in?
I think it's massively important. Interestingly, in 2011, a lot of people used Turntable in an office. People didn't work remotely so much. So actually, most of the office use was physically in the same place. And I'd say actually that's the most fun way to use it. It's also really fun today because a lot of people are remote and they don't even have a team building activities that they can do every day that really connects people to other people. So it really helps with the remote office. But today it's still more fun in an office. But your question is about, have we given up on physical, has the world given up on it? And I think a lot of Gen Z kids are in a pattern right now. And that pattern is they're on Discord, they're playing video games, they're on Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite. and they have girlfriends that they've never seen before in real life, thousands of miles away. And it's just happening more and more. If you look at trends of where people are meeting, it's like skyrocketed to be online. It's not through bars. It's not even through friends. And you also see the trend of everybody saying that there's a loneliness epidemic. Like so many people are waking up and saying, "Oh, I feel alone," even though supposedly we're so connected through these rich bandwidth channels, through Zoom and all this. And I think those are obviously connected. I think there's a certain sense of like fake socialization that's happening. That's maybe just enough that we think it's happening, but we're missing out on that real connection. And we do realize that, but at a high level. So there was some research actually recently that last week that said music alone can actually trigger some satiating feelings about social connection. But obviously, because in the past, I think because in the past, so music was always someone was playing it, right? Or even with the vinyls, like usually there was someone in a group playing that. But now with Spotify, everyone has headphones in and everyone's listening, on their own to their own personalized soundtrack. And we've kind of atomized and we're all listening to different things. So people really miss that and they don't realize it. That's the main problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the inclusion of music, it just changes. It changes your perception of reality. So my favorite example of this is it's not necessarily a new thing, but my favorite genre of TikTok and Instagram these days is, Ron, have you seen these videos where they'll take like an iconic music video and they'll just strip out the music? So it's just the person dancing and they just look ridiculous, right? And you remember when you first like Michael Jackson, his iconic, the first day he did the moonwalk, if you strip all the music out, it's just some weird guy moving around. And he even looks less rhythmic. Like I remember the first time you saw the moonwalk, it's just such a beautiful moment in American musical history and dance history. If you watch it without the music, he looks ridiculous. And so it changes not just like our mood, it changes literally how we perceive things. And I love that you're building stuff that kind of draws people back together. Ron and I have talked about this a lot, Joseph. Like, I have no data to support this, but just intuitively, with observable information, particularly amongst, I'd say, older millennial and above men, there is absolutely a pandemic of loneliness.
And yes, exactly. It's funny that example you give because in film school, they do an exercise where they show the Star Wars movie without the soundtrack. And it's just awful. It's just boring and dry and confusing. And so that emotion all comes from the music, and that's an important part.
But you also put a point. You brought up a point about how music changes the environment and brings about connection. So in my home, we have speakers built into the home everywhere, and since we've been living there, when I have company over, more often than when I'm alone, but occasionally when I'm alone, I do it. I'll put on music. And I find when we might have sat at the table for a half hour to eat and have some conversation, it's now become a 2 or 3 hour experience of sitting around the table post the meal because the music just makes you feel calmer and more, it just has more of a powerful effect on the memory of what you're experiencing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so
you're picking all of the music?
Well, I am because it's my house. John, you haven't picked the music yet when you've been in my house, have you? No.
It would be all thrash metal.
Yeah, of course. It's either that or
calm
listen, the truth is John always asks me to put on Snow White or Sleeping Beauty or Beauty and the Beast. I'm like, sorry, John, no Disney soundtracks for you.
I'm a girl dad. I'm all in. T Swift, Elsa, whatever it takes.
Oh yeah, Frozen, let it go. Yeah, I have 2 daughters as well, so it's I listen.
Maybe we shift to like the economic models.
And that's where I was about to get to. So how you
monetize? So the economic model is actually built into what you're asking before. So we don't have ads, and we don't want to have ads. And I know a lot of social networks are based on ads. Even DSPs often have it, but I think it's pretty important because I think what the ads have done is they create an incentive for social platforms to make you consume just more of the internet, to just look at more pages, to scroll infinitely. I think that's the wrong incentive. So we're focused on 2 business models. The first one is subscription, and it's freemium. So most people are free, some people pay. Most people don't pay, but some people pay. And there it's just value. So we just want to provide value to you to be able to experience and enjoy just the month that you have the subscription for. And that doesn't mean we want you to spend 100 hours in that month, thousands of hours in the month playing music. We want you to just enjoy it enough so that you build that connection with the friends and family that you want to. And I think a key part of what we want is not just people spending hours on the screen. I want to build, once we get to scale, once we get to tens and hundreds of millions of users, to build a hangout space. It's what we call each virtual room a hangout. I want to build a hangout for every city and every genre. So you can have like a New York hip hop, or maybe even smaller, like a Union Square hip hop hangout. And everyone who's really into hip hop, who's around there, or Manhattan, can come into that hangout. And then maybe every Friday they actually meet up at one of these locations and actually meet up in person. So now we're bridging the digital with the physical. And I want to do that for every city, for every genre. So that way we encourage people to reconnect again over music in a way that they, I mean, really totally lost obviously during the pandemic. But even stepping back from that, it's kind of just degraded over time. Like people aren't going to even music festivals as much. I don't know if you've heard of, there's something called a restival. A lot of Gen Z, instead of going to a music festival, will like stay back, live stream Coachella, and just rest, and they call it a restival.
So I think what bothers me most about Gen Z is not the things they do. Like what you just described, that actual thing, it doesn't sound that bad. It doesn't sound that crazy. I think what bugs me is the insanely annoying names they give to these relatively good ideas. Like you lost me at Restival. Like you could have just said the best thing ever, and I would have, my eyes rolled in the back of my head. I think it's really just a PR and naming problem. Like their actual behaviors.
Are you saying Gen Z created the name TradFi?
That's fair. That's a fair point. Fair point. Okay, so Joseph, if you could, I mean, I'm going to bring this back to my life. If it sounds like you've created a mechanism for my 11-year-old daughter to keep me up to speed on what she's listening to in a way that doesn't involve me like going through her phone or like looking at her Alexa history.
I think it'd be interesting actually if it was bi-directional. So the thing about Hangout is it's by default everyone's taking turns. And so
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah, so you can actually play something that educates her about your decades that you enjoy, and then she can play something that is, shares something from her heart, and now you're taking turns.
Which is what I did with my youngest daughter.
Yeah.
Whereas she knows more about music of my genres than her mother. We went to a Billy Joel concert. Her mom knew fewer songs and lyrics than her youngest daughter, who knew almost all the songs and lyrics because we played for one another. Same way I knew and know music that most people are like, how do you know this song? I guess implying that I'm too old to be listening to it.
My problem, Ron, is like when I think about like my golden age of music and I want to bring my daughters in, I grew up on like 80s rap, so like Two Live Crew. It's not appropriate. Like I'm like, sweetheart, like this is what daddy listened to when he was your age. And it's just the most vile, disgusting, awful stuff. Like my problem is I've always been a fan of really bad music. Like I listen to like the Zima of music. Like I just have the most awful, the boxed wine of music. And so I need my daughters to teach me what's good versus the other way.
By the way, just fast forward, it gets worse, this experience, when they're in their 20s, because this weekend we watched Private Parts, my son, his twin sister, and their significant others. And my son was saying, oh, I knew all this because my dad made me listen to it when I was like 8 or 9. I'm like, no, I didn't. Like all these inappropriate like storylines that they played back. So yeah, they'll blame you for things, by the way. So be prepared for that.
So Joseph, the other thing you said, which I thought was interesting, was you framed as though you can use music as a way to physically meet up. But it occurred to me that like the first thing you said when I thought that was like, okay, like a nightclub type scene or a loud party type scene where the music is sort of dominating. But that's not it. I mean, there's also probably a component where like the music can be sort of in the background, just providing sort of a baseline thing for people to integrate in. Like if I'm at a party and there's really good music playing, but the volume's low enough that I can still have a conversation, it still accomplishes to some degree that effect you were talking about, right?
Totally sets the vibe. Yep. And instead of, and then like Ron, you said that you're setting the vibe, but you could also have the group set the vibe. Maybe on your next dinner, you could have everybody create a hangout. You can create a hangout that everyone participates in and sets the vibe communally,
Oh no,
which
no.
is
I'm
something
looking.
you've
By the
never
way,
been able to
I'm
do.
open to it, and everybody's always asking from my phone, or they're shouting out, "No, play the song." So it's like I'm the DJ that they're asking, "Where's this?" Enables people to go on and do it. And what's it go in queue, or is it go every other, like a
It's a round
RPG
robin.
game?
It's a round robin by default, and you can go up on stage or not, and then it takes turns. And so it's just very simple, but it allows everyone to have a little bit of a chance. You
Okay.
can skip something, but it's a bit different from requests because a request is like everyone's yelling and you're choosing and there's arguments. And when it's round robin, everyone gets a choice.
Yeah.
It's a surprise. That's probably the best part that, it's like, oh, what's next? Who's playing this? Who picked this one?
So, okay, so it's like an egalitarian jukebox where everybody gets a
Yeah.
turn and you don't really know what's coming up next. Are there AI components that will try to kind of predict and maybe take over if people's choices lapse, or are you staying true to the human?
We're trying to keep this very human. So we're
Okay.
keeping AI out of it as much as possible. We
Okay.
use AI moderation and we will suggest things for you if you want some advice based on previous songs. But we really want to push the agency to each person there so they
Okay.
can so that when song's playing that somebody chose this, they thought thoughtfully about this, they picked it. Often people are changing the songs based on the previous song that played, so they can say, "Oh, wait, that leads me to think of this one. Now I can share a story about that. Let me pick this one instead."
So I
It's
remember
very dynamic.
I remember in conversation you said that turntable, the initial prototype, caught fire and went viral. Any any guidance as to why you think it went viral? Is there something you did? Was it just luck, chance?
Uh, Definitely, it was ahead of its time. So like I had been thinking about music for a while. I was going to different music festivals like Coachella, Burning Man, concerts at Webster Hall in New York. And by the way, I was in New York at the time. And I really loved the music, and even more, I loved the community part. And so I was thinking like how to combine this, and I was building leading edge software. So I was thinking, is there a way to, make a product out of this? So I think it was just so ahead of its time. Like I launched this before Spotify launched in the
Yeah.
US. Like it was really, 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 really early. So that's a big factor. From a growth design mechanism standpoint, one really key thing is I had the idea to put, uh, we didn't want, say, the pitch was like, oh, we don't want random people with bad music taste to be allowed in. So we put a Facebook login, and you had to log in with Facebook in order to even attempt to get in. And then we said, you're on the wait list unless you know someone who's already in the inside,
So you're
right?
like the Rye of music.
Right, exactly. And so, everyone has a lot of friends, so it actually is quite viral in that way. But still, if you're really out of nowhere in the middle of Uzbekistan, you might not get in. But everybody who knows somebody already in easily gets in. They feel special because they got in. They posted on the few social networks we had and said, "Hey, look, I got into this thing. Like, come join me." And so that had a really nice viral mechanism. But the Facebook login in particular, Facebook was promoting a lot of uh, apps built on their platform. So it fit well with what they were trying to do. We launched Hangout 4 months ago. It's gone viral as well. It's gone viral around the world. And that's because the main mechanic is needed. People want group streaming, and they solo streaming is great and they're happy with that, but they also want group streaming, especially Gen Z.
Stay on this topic for a second, Joseph, because you've now had two viral releases. Yeah, 2011's only X years away, but it might as well be the 1820s, right? So I'm genuinely curious when you observe kind of how this is spreading, how it's being used, how this generation's engaging with it. What do you notice that's different from the last go around?
There's one, I'd say two things are very different, at least three things that are very different. One surprising thing from users is that I think turntables, everyone was very public. People just picked dubstep in public and were very public about it. For
Mm,
this, most users, 99.9% of users are making private hangouts. They're just hanging out with their five friends, hanging out
interesting.
in private rooms, which is very similar. to Discord, actually. So most Discords are also, almost all Discords are 10 people or less. It's just a few friends hanging out. That's interesting. The second thing is that, again, Spotify didn't exist. So there was no playlist economy, is what I call it. There were no playlists. They didn't exist. So it's a bit harder to pick songs, find songs. Now it's a little bit easier because everyone has a few playlists. Everyone sees public playlists. So we have partnerships with Apple Music, SoundCloud, Spotify. So we actually can import and export playlists from the millions of playlists on Apple Music, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So that makes it a lot easier to integrate your solo streaming life with this group streaming life. So that's another huge, huge difference. The third major difference, also in the business model perspective, is in 2011, there wasn't really this concept of virtual goods. And since then, Fortnite is now huge. I mean, your children probably play it. Fortnite makes billions of dollars selling virtual goods, avatars, skins. And again, that number was like 0 in 2011. So that's a whole new business model that we're entering as well, because we also have avatars and effects and things like that. So we're going to launch this virtual goods store later this quarter.
So go ahead, Ron, please.
Yeah. So for aspiring app designers or other entrepreneurs, what would you say the hardest or most challenging parts of turntable 1 and what I'm going to call turntable 2, for no apparent reason other than it's easier for me to understand it that way?
So
what were the biggest hurdles or barriers of entry?
For Hangout, the biggest hurdle is the deals, the music deals. So getting licensing to get all the music. As you have said, Gen Z doesn't just listen to music that came out this year or this decade. They listen to all the music going back many decades. So I couldn't really just get a few songs. I needed to get hundreds of millions of tracks, all the music. So it took me 4 years to sign the deals with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music, plus all the indies with Merlin. So it's taken a lot of BD to get those deals done. It took 4 years before we could launch. But I would say it's totally worth it because now we're in a whole different ballgame because we're fully in the music industry. The music industry owns a big part of the company. And I mean, that's definitely the biggest barrier. Totally. Yeah.
So what your typical user, I'm guessing, is like Gen Z. So call it like what, 22 to 28. Is that a typical user?
Yeah. And teens as well. Yeah.
Teens as well. Okay. And how willing is that generation to pay for subscription services where they're used to having their data exploited to finance the finance free resources?
Well, again, we don't have ads, so we're not selling anyone's data.
Right. I'm saying they're used to that model. So how willing did you find them to transition to a no ad subscription paying model?
They're less than other older users, mainly because they have less money, obviously.
Right.
The thing to note though is that people talk a lot about SaaS in venture and they want to be in this B2B SaaS, but there's actually no bigger SaaS, consumer SaaS, or any SaaS than music. 600 million people around the world pay monthly for music streaming every single month. There's nothing that has numbers like that. It's huge. It's bigger than Netflix. People love to pay for music. I think a typical consumer SaaS or even B2B SaaS freemium subscription rate, the percent of people who are free who subscribe is typically like what, a few percent, 2 to 5%. That's like good. A world class would be like 8 to 10%. If you look at Spotify, you know what that number is? Guess.
I mean, I'm guessing it's higher. So I'm going to say 15.
42%.
Wow.
Exactly.
So just to be clear, 42% of Spotify users pay for some type of service.
Pay for the $12 a month subscription.
Pay for something beyond the basic free model. That's amazing because the free service is not that bad.
I used to have the free service, and this is interesting. I'm trying to remember why I went from free to premium. I presume I didn't want to listen to ads. I have no memory of it even because it was almost thoughtless.
For me, it was my daughters. I linked it to my Alexa at home, and my daughters kept switching it to them, and that would cut me off. So I'd be walking to work, and I was perfectly fine with free. I'm a casual consumer of music. Again, I have crappy taste, so all of my artists are readily available, and they just kept flipping it off, and I just got frustrated and paid for the family model so we could all listen to it at the same time.
Well, how many albums did Yanni come up with?
Okay, and so I mean, Joseph, you're absolutely right. I mean, I never thought of the ubiquitousness of music consumption and how it's more like a vital necessity, like food, than
Yes.
really an optional purchase.
Because it is. That's the thing. It's not top of mind as that. And people sometimes write it off and they're like, oh, music's free, just download MP3s. But Spotify, by providing a great service, now no one has MP3s on their laptop. Sure. Even though everyone used to have them, right? Now they don't even need it. They trust that Spotify will be there, but they also know that they need it. The music is something that almost everyone on the planet needs. Humans have been playing music, singing, dancing around campfires for millions of years. And it's only recently that we've kind of lost this group connection with music. We've only lost that recently because of headphones, because of Spotify. So I'm not doing anything new really with Hangout. I'm just bringing us back to our roots.
Are there, do you notice a gender difference? I'm just curious, do men use this product differently from women or more or less than women, or vice versa?
Oh,
you can say gender, you can say age. Are you noticing any defining characteristics of different behavior? Maybe that might be
that's a good
broad way to ask.
We should release some news posts about the split. Actually, it'd be interesting. So what we're seeing that for boys, they're often using it while gaming. They're using it in the background while they're playing, video games that they like to play, Call of Duty and those things like that. Girls really like some of the cute cat avatars or things we have, so they're into the social effects of that, the little avatars and little people dancing around and talking to each other. But in terms of amount of music, I mean, I think different genres as well. I don't have the breakdown of that right now, but yeah, I see there's some differences, but we don't break that down entirely. But that'd be an interesting post for me to put up. Yeah.
And where do you see this leading to next? Because you must be planning stage 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah, the big thing we're launching this quarter is the virtual goods store. So you'll be able to buy new avatars. You'll be able to buy an Aerosmith avatar and pretend, dress up.
Are you look like Steven Tyler's what you're telling me?
Exactly. On Hangout. And what else? Oh, you'll in fireworks effects, fog effects, lights, do cool things to show off that you're buying the stuff on the stage. I mean, people just love this kind of stuff on Fortnite or TikTok live. And so
they're small indulgences. They're like Starbucks coffees, but they are permanent and durable. This has been in crypto, this is a continual conversation. What is the value of these digital goods? And I agree with you, like, Roblox, Fireblocks, Roblox, Fortnite, they've sort of led the way here. And the analogy I always give when I meet people who don't understand or think it's kind of silly, and by the way, it's interesting, I speak at these conferences, I ask people, like, raise your hand if you think this is ridiculous. I show a picture of a rabbit armor avatar that my nephew asked for me to give him for Christmas, cost about like 40 or 50 bucks. And, mostly older people raise their hand, but actually I think it's more about how if you grew up with a traditional financial education, then it looks just shocking to think you'd spend money on that. And then the next picture I put up, Joseph, is an actual photo of me in 1993, standing on the street corner in Brooklyn with a pair of Z Cavaricci pants, which were these ridiculous clownish pants. But that's what you wanted to manifest your personality if you were an Italian kid from Brooklyn in 1993.
Yes.
And
so you didn't have Capizios in the other hand?
The question I give the audience is, if me looking ridiculous on the street corner is a $100 billion industry or more, why is my nephew looking ridiculous in the place he lives a good chunk of his life not equally valid? And folks don't have an answer for that. It's going to take it's a bit of a learning curve, but I think we'll get there.
But you can also go back in time and talk about the tulip bulb craze, Cabbage Patch Kids, tulip bulb craze.
It's social. So people spend money to distinguish socially, like, Hermes bags and things like that. If you look at more consumable items, like in New York nightclub, people will come together and buy bottles of champagne and
Yep.
scream it out and like one up each other who can buy the more bigger bottles of champagne
Yep.
and waste it more. And that's an example of people spending money on that kind of thing.
But Joseph, you were talking about historically in campfires. Look at some of the earlier rulers where they buried people alive with them, or armies of people, to cosmetics.
Or buried with their jewels, maybe buried
Yeah,
with their gold and their jewels. Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Joseph, I got a chance. There's a wonderful woman who was the CEO of LVMH in the U.S. for a long time. Pauline Brown, I believe is her name. Anyway,
That's in the news now, by the way. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but
sorry?
LVMH and things are in the news.
Yeah, well, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts, because I heard her speak once, and she made a comment that I'll never forget. She got up on stage. She's this remarkably elegant woman, brilliant. And she said, "Hi, my name's Pauline." And she said, "I used to be CEO of the U.S. arm of a company that does, I feel like, $90 billion top line." And then she paused and she looked at all of us and said, "Not $1 of which anyone needs." And it was just a brilliant. And then she went on to her whole speech about consumer luxury goods. But that acknowledgement and that admission in the beginning of her conversation, I just thought was so powerful and brilliant. And I think about it a lot. I think about how much of our GDP globally is spent on things that we don't need, and how just because we don't actually need them is not dismissive of their importance.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a bit of a zero-sum thing, right? It's about spending more than someone else, but if we all had less, it would still net out to the same thing. It's more about the relative spending, I guess, a bit.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been in those bottle wars in nightclubs a decade or so ago. It's what's funny is, like, while you're doing it how dumb it is. And again,
you get caught up in the sociological aspects.
Without music, all that goes away. Like, no one's having a bottle war in like a bar with no music. It's just
like an auctioneer, like
absolutely zero chance of wasting all that money, regardless of how much you have, in a soundless room.
So what are the things that keep you up at night regarding Hangout and the future of the business?
It keeps me up at night. Not so much.
And hopefully you don't answer loud music, because that would be self-promoting.
I was gonna make that bad joke. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm glad I saved you, John.
We're growing double digits % per month. Things are pretty good. Yeah, just looking for the right partners, like people who really understand the vision that we've outlined together. People, I just, do I have everyone on board who wants to be on board as an advisor, as an investor? Do I have, we have artists coming on every week, like Empire of the Sun, Sophie Tucker, Greta Van Fleet, these big, awesome bands that are growing so much, doing album release parties on our platform, doing tour date launch parties. And we want more of those artists on, and, we just need more advisors that are on board with that, more advisors who want to see through the vision. We're throwing a really cool party, pre-Coachella activation on April 17th in LA. And it's going to be really fun. We're inviting a lot of these advisors and music execs to this event. It's going to be really fun. We're going to have huge up and coming artists on there. And do we have everyone in the room that's going to help us make this big, right? That's our main question.
Do you need to appeal to an older demographic for this to be successful, or can you just make this business work with, early millennials and younger?
In terms of making the business work, we only need 10,000 subscribers to be, break even. That's not that much. So yes, we would just need Gen Z to do that. In terms of opportunity, the market, look at solo streaming. It has hundreds of millions of subscribers, billions of listeners. Social networking has 4 billion. Meta alone has 4 billion users. So, we'd be serving the market short if we didn't expand, if we or someone else.
You said the music industry is what, 600 million is what you said earlier?
Paying subscribers, yeah.
Yeah.
Paying subscribers, yeah.
For solo streaming. But it's even more if you include the free users, which is probably over 1 billion. So it's just a huge market of opportunity to have social networking online with music, probably in the billions. So that includes not just the young people, it includes everybody. I think more and more people, even older people, are spending more and more time online. Like Gen Z is native to it, but even, all of us are spending more and more time on the internet, and it's silent. It's crickets, right? Or we're listening alone with our headphones. It's like if you went to a party and everyone puts in AirPods and listens to their own Spotify. That'd be incredibly weird.
Well,
You do
but they
that
have
every
they do have
day.
those parties where
Silent disco,
with
yeah.
a silent disco, yeah, where you put on a headset. And I've walked into that first time before I ever saw one, it was years ago.
Yeah.
John, off the record, I think it was outside of an event that Ronan and a few other people were hosting. And you go outside and you see people dancing with their headsets on, and you're like, WTF?
It's the demise. It's the demise of society. Like that's like if you had to if
That's
you
what
wrote
we're
this,
seeing. We're
That's the
seeing the
most
demise of society,
yeah,
right?
if you
but
wrote
it's
the dystopian
isolating.
novel
It's
of
as
like
isolating as it can get in person.
yeah, no. So, Joseph, what about the artists?
At least,
How is
at,
their
at least it's
understanding this next generation of artists? How is their relationship with streaming evolving? I don't read about you don't read so much about artists. I mean, once in a while, there'll be like a show. Oh, this guy a billion streams, and you got to check for $5, something like that. But I'm not hearing. You don't hear about lawsuits as much. Are artists just evolving their understanding of how to create art and distribute art and make money in this new era, or has the technology just bulldozed everyone to the point where they can't fight back anymore?
So does the power rest? Has it changed? Has it changed a power dynamic?
there's a lot. You're asking about general music industry trends, which I know a lot about, although it's not so relevant to Hangout. But I can mention one thing, I guess relevant. There's been a little bit of a shift toward publishers, which are the songwriters, people who write songs. It used to be that the recording artists, the recordings and the music labels had vast majority of the power and all the revenue from that. And some recent shifts, some of them powered by Taylor Swift, actually have shifted some of that revenue from streaming from the recordings to the publishing rights, which are the noise mechanicals or just the people who wrote the song. And so, people who are singer-songwriters start to get more of that revenue, and that's getting shared a lot more directly with artists. There's not as much overhead, there's different kinds of deals. So that's, I think, has been a lot of people say that's a positive development.
So I'm Chappelle Roan. I'm someone now, or I'm a band now that's hot. Give me the pitch as to why I want to allow my music to stream over your app. What is how do you engage with the? And obviously, I know it doesn't work that way. You work at the music companies, but I'm kind of curious. If I were a creator,
Yeah, so
why do I want to work with you?
we already have their music. We have everyone's music from the labels. But one thing we ask artists, like we Empire of the Sun and Sophie Tucker, we said, hey, you want to market your music, you want everyone to know about this album drop. So Sophie Tucker releasing Bread album in January, like come on our platform, tell our users about you, do a live AMA, Ask Me Anything, where your fans, your super fans, ask you questions and you tell them about your life, you tell them about each song. And what if you do that, not just in a Reddit AMA, which is just text-based and there's no music? What if you do it on our platform where you can do text, you can do voice if you want, and all the music's playing, racking up streams if you want, and also it's just way more emotional, right? You write, you talk about the song, you hear it at the same time, and you turn fans into super fans. People come to these concerts we have on Hangout with the live artist, and after a bit they start buying. They go to their Shopify and they buy a t-shirt, a physical t-shirt. So we sell merch, even though it's not a physical concert. We sell physical merch. It's amazing. We tell the artist just come for 20 minutes, play 5 songs, and then that's it. It's good. People like it. The artists come for 20 minutes and they have so much fun that they stay for 2 hours. I don't even have to convince them. Then they come back the next week and they do it again because it's so much fun.
Are you noticing trends over the last few months that you hadn't noticed prior?
No trends that I
Meaning, I'm
had.
trying to take it away now from the demographics, since I know that might be too particularized at this point. But you're talking about merchandise. Are you seeing an increase in the sale of merchandise? Are you expanding upon? I know you're moving to online purchasing for
Virtual goods.
virtual goods.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I think things are pretty in line with the beta. I'm trying to remember if there was some other number that's been moving around very much. We're seeing a lot more people getting involved in loving the platform so much that they want to just moderate. So they're coming on and they're saying, "Hey, I want to make sure everything is safe for everybody, that everyone's playing appropriate music, and at least the public hangouts are okay." So we give those people moderation privileges, and they really help out with moderating the site, and it's been really helpful. So it's been nice to know that our users love us so much that they've got our back and they're helping out that way. We're seeing users spend up to 2 hours a session on it on the site, so that's really exciting. They're not just there for 5 minutes and they're out playing one song. They're really just really getting into it and spending hours and hours on it.
I think this mechanism of allowing content creators to engage more closely with their fan base, I think to me that's the offset of any sort of economic damage or economic loss that they've had as a result of streaming. And look, not every artist, not every content creator, not everyone's gonna be able to build that, but things like what you're building, things like crypto, they'll allow them to be creative in ways that it's difficult for me to even imagine. We're looking at projects where ownership of a token tied to a particular content creator would give fans certain privileges. So Joseph, my background is financial services, and I was around when Wall Street figured out it could take the same data set and sell it time sliced, infinite number of times. So you wanted 5 seconds for Ron's okay with having it 2 seconds after me. And I can take that same data set and just sell it by time. That was a massive innovation in like the late 90s, fundamentally transformed the same data set, 1000x in value. And so we're looking at projects where artists can use programmable tokens and say, well, if you own it, you get to see my tweets 5 minutes before everybody else, my exes, or you get maybe to hear my album drop a little bit sooner than everybody else. So there's going to be interesting ways but to do that, they have to find that community of fans that cares about those things. And it sounds like you're building those environments for them.
Correct. So there are people we're integrated into Discord as one of our partnerships. And so there are some artists that already have big Discord communities. So we just plug right in. And like Girl in Red is an example of a really hot Norwegian artist who's plugged in their Discord platform and used Hangout to actually stream music legally on there. But some people are just even building their communities directly on Hangout. So they're just telling people, come hang out here. Umi's doing a show every month on our platform, just streaming, talking, sharing, having fun, and just building that community that's growing every single month, every single week.
Are you finding that there's a certain commonality among the artists that are coming online versus, like, I was in my head popped when I went to see Paul McCartney play in Brooklyn. It reminded me almost like a Billy Joel experience at the Garden where they talk about their songs and the background to before they go on. Are you finding that it's younger artists coming on more to do that, or you're just getting a whole mix around?
It's a whole kind. Every artist, every genre is what we say. Everybody. We have different backgrounds. Like we have a barn background for country artists that come on, and for hip hop, we've done like DJ, like hip hop. Rap battles. So for people doing rap battles, so you had all kinds of genres. The main difference, I guess, is some artists aren't interested in interacting with their fans. That's just not what they want to do. They just want to record and put it out there and like be regarded, but they don't necessarily want to do that legwork of interacting, or they just don't enjoy it that much. And so they're probably not as interested in being on Hangout directly. But plenty of artists are, and so they're really getting the most value. But the people who like to interact with their fans, that spans the gamut. I wouldn't say there's any particular type.
If you were speaking to somebody 20 years younger than you that's trying to figure out their life, what advice, and when I say their life, I'm talking about the professional business life, what advice might you give them? Because you've had a very interesting career path.
Yeah. I mean, my best advice is just to be upfront with people and be very helpful. Just try to give more than you're asking for, and then just eventually things will work out. Yeah, you might be screwed over a bit sometimes, but eventually things will work out. And just try to give back to the community, give back to your country, give back to the people you work with, and things will get better and better for you eventually. I think that's probably the general advice. If you're an entrepreneur, I would say the grit is pretty important. You have to be able to get through things that like take years and years, and not you've just got to figure out a way to get through it. And so grit is, I think I've learned is what investors look for, and it's what founders that survive have.
Joseph, looking at your history, so you've obviously been a successful entrepreneur, but you've also worked for companies, right? You kind of
Yeah,
pop back and forth.
Facebook, which was Meta now, but yeah, Facebook at the time, and Lyft. Yeah, I've gone back and forth.
And was it I always needed to be, I'll never be happy if I'm not an entrepreneur, or was it just opportunistic from moment to moment? It was that?
Yeah, I really, every time I am working for other people, I realized, I mean, I think there's something about big company politics that in the past I've really not enjoyed. There's a certain I like the focus on actually getting things done and doing them efficiently, doing them for the benefit of the whole company as a whole and for everyone. And company politics are not about that, and it's kind of a waste.
I mean, no argument there. I guess what I was leading to is I've noticed I speak at a lot of colleges, and I've noticed that there's a almost fetishizing of entrepreneurship to the point where recently at a big tech university, 500-600 kids, I asked, what do you guys want to do? And like 98% when I said, you want to start your own company, raise their hand. And I don't know why I felt I sensed something about the way some kids are raising their hand. I made a point. I said, that's wonderful. That's awesome. It's amazing. But if you don't, that's okay. You can innovate. And
most people are going to work for someone else, and that's fine.
And this
has to work for the companies.
I'll say that these two young women came up to me afterwards and like quietly, like they're almost in shame. They pulled me. They were like, thank you so much. They feel so much pressure to be an entrepreneur, which is a wonderful, admirable thing. But it does seem like that's become the de facto standard goal. And to your points, it's like if every kid raised their hand and said, I'm going to play in the NBA. You'd be like, I don't want to kill your dreams, man, but like you're probably not. Like
I think founders are the first people to tell you to not start a company.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure about that. So I started our firm with 30,000 in business.
Okay.
And I would say for the first 15 to 20 years, and we're going on close to 30, I was freaked out every day of my life. And I was coming in at 7 a.m. like into Manhattan, and I was going home at 9, 10, 11 at night. I think for what my life experience is, the commonality that entrepreneurs share, it's a compulsion. I don't know if we'd even say that we want to be entrepreneurs. You just feel like there's no other acceptable path that you feel that you fit in, and thus necessity is the mother of invention. And it's this compulsion to invent an environment in which you feel comfortable yourself.
Yeah. That's right, Ron. My point is, I don't think 98% of people share that compulsion.
They don't.
Correct.
And kudos to you. $30,000 is your pocket square budget now. So I admire you. Sorry, Joseph, you were saying.
I agree completely. And even as an entrepreneur, that fits well with me in a lot of ways. I would still say I valued very much being at Facebook. Like I was at Facebook very early. I was helping lead their mobile transition. I was leading the news feed. It's an incredible learning experience that you get that absolutely is serving me now in leading these companies. I absolutely got experience shipping to literally 1 billion people at Facebook, right? And now I can take that experience and be metrics driven and use that in my current company. And there's just obviously zero chance I can get that kind of experience at a startup or leading my own little rinky-dink thing. Like I had to do that. I had to sit right across from Mark Zuckerberg's desk and like learn from the best who he hired around me as well. And at Lyft, I specifically
you were there when he was a nerd. You were there before he got all cool and jacked and jujitsu-y and like
early Zuck.
You were early. You were like vintage nerd Zuck. That's awesome.
And then I joined Lyft also specifically because I wanted to get practice with management. I hadn't been interested in management before, people management, and I really wanted to know how to do that well from other experienced managers. And so Lyft has great managers, great directors. And I thought, and again, as a startup, you won't learn that, right? You'll maybe hire a few people and it'll take years. So I joined Lyft, used my skills, was able to manage several teams on every platform, iOS, Android, web, and was able to take that to great success and eventually IPO, which again, having IPO experience just in a couple of years, really rare to happen as a startup. But I was able to have that. And I know what a company looks like when it's successful. I know best practices from Facebook and Lyft about how to run a company. And I can take that to my company as it's growing.
Any mistakes that you've made that you regret that you would advise other people, if it's applicable, to avoid?
Going on this podcast.
John, I wasn't asking you the question about yourself.
I'm sure there's a ton of, I mean, there is a ton of mistakes. So it's a question. I wish there was more.
We all have.
More of a focused.
We all have. But was there one that sort of stood out for you as a learning curve that maybe you can leave the audience with some legacy knowledge on what to avoid? And by the way, John, I know you've had them. I've had them.
Yeah. There's a ton of things.
Like I would say listening to your gut.
That's a good
Listening
one.
to your gut, to me, when I haven't listened to my gut and I've gone along with everybody else's desire to do something, staying quiet wasn't the right thing. And it's not necessarily, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I didn't want to be the last person as a holdout. So those are the times I regret not speaking up. I'll give you that as an example. Or knowing that at the end of the day, sometimes I worried about the smallest things and I obsessed over them instead of focusing on the macro, the bigger picture.
I'm going to say something topical to you. So I would say picking
Better not be about my hair, buddy.
picking a lawyer, I think, is really important. I mean, it depends on the stakes of it, but
Sure.
corporate law, litigation, all this stuff, you want to like pick somebody that you really can resonate with, that's easy to communicate with, that is in line with how you want to approach things. And there's actually a wide variety. I mean, I learned this the expensive way.
Sure.
You can't just pick any lawyer. There's actually quite a wide variety. And in skill level, and probably depends on even how you got introduced to them. And they have different styles. Like some lawyers are quite shady, and they operate more shadily in how they deal with everything, and they're very aggressive. And other ones are very creative, and they are always trying to work together with people. And they're all different, as different as people are. That's how many kinds of lawyers.
Yeah, your counsel can reflect the culture or the ethos of your business.
Yeah.
So they're representative of your identity.
Yes. And it will have absolutely effects on how effective all the legal things they do for you are. And you should get something that's in line with you. And usually people do. I, for some things, just ended up picking the first person. I didn't realize I should look around a bit more and find somebody who fits well.
That's helpful. John, real quick, I'm sort of curious, anything other than comedy that you regret in your career?
I mean, when I hear you being complimented, my instincts are to shoot you down. So I'll stop. I won't do that.
It's a sign of our friendship. That's a sign of our friendship.
I think similar to what Joseph said, my biggest regret has been not trusting my instincts and not trusting the evidence about people. So trusting the wrong people, but everybody does that. So I don't fault myself for getting into a bad business relationship with somebody who turns out to be a bad person. That happens. But what I do fault myself on is not recognizing when they're showing me they're a bad business partner or a bad person, not pulling the plug quickly enough and allowing myself to get tied in with that person. So it's like with an employee, like you realize it's not working, rip the Band-Aid off and move on. You know, why don't we do it? We don't do it because we're FOMO'd out. What if I'm missing something? What if this person is useful? We're scared of the switching cost. What a headache it's going to be to find a new auditor or find a new lawyer or find a new employee. All of those pale in comparison to the cost of staying in that bad relationship too long. Probably can also extend this advice to personal relationships too. So I think my biggest mistake was just not like the evidence was very plain in front of me. Someone was showing me who they were. Yeah. And I just hung around for the ride because I was too lazy to make a difference.
Yeah, hence the saying, slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah, fire fast. Yeah.
Yeah, those are that.
I've learned that as well.
That's
Yeah,
really
last
hard
question,
to.
Joseph. I know that you didn't work at Lyft you haven't worked at Lyft for a while, but I got to ask you this question. I'm really curious. Why do you think post-COVID? No, I'm not. Not everything I say is sarcastic or hyperbolic. A genuine question. Genuine question. Why hasn't post-COVID? Why hasn't ride sharing in big cities really come back? And if it's an unfair question, I feel free not to say you don't know. But I'm kind of curious, given your experience there.
Well, so during COVID, Lyft went down quite a bit because of COVID, and it didn't have a it didn't have a food delivery part of it. So it was hard
And
for
to be
Lyft.
clear, I meant like group sharing,
Any kind
like pooling together. That I'm sorry, that's what I'm
cool.
talking about. There was a
Oh,
company
I
called
see, I see.
Via in New York.
That's easy. That's
Oh yeah, tell me.
So in the even 2019, like we still had the shared lifts,
Yeah,
but they were very unprofitable because it turns out if you have to go out of your way, it ends up very quickly not being worth it. And then you can only save like a few pennies basically. But if it's only a few pennies difference, like why would you share the ride with someone and take an extra 20 minutes or even 5 minutes to get out of it? So when you do the math and you do all your analysis, there just almost is never enough people on your path, actually.
Have either of you used any app where you're sharing rides? Because
yes,
I never have.
yes. Pre-COVID, Via in New York was fantastic.
as well.
I'm sure, to Joseph's point, I'm sure they were fantastic because they were losing tremendous amounts of money.
Yeah, they were trying to subsidize, hoping that would solve everything, but it was losing money each ride. And post-COVID, especially with the funding environment and their public, like you couldn't be losing that much money anymore. And so they had to, so cutting it saved a ton of money.
That's what it is. Okay, no, asked and answered.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Real play. I learned a lot today. Thank you, Joseph. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We enjoyed it. Keep us in touch with any changes that you have going on.
I'm signing up. Well, I should say I'm going to try to sign up, and you'll decide if I'm cool enough to actually get in. But
you have to put in your music taste.
No, I want to credit. Like, I have an 18-year-old nephew.
Do it with your kids. I think that's.
Yeah, I have an 18-year-old nephew who's a freshman in college.
Yeah.
I have and he always sends me good workout, like the new generation of pump up music. I've got my 8-year-old, my 11-year-old. I'm going to create a whole extended family network, and I want to try to see if I can use music to improve my connective tissue to my younger people, my family.
Yeah. That's actually a really interesting idea of bringing the family together through music, as opposed to just friends.
Yes.
So, all right. So when you see my application, Joseph, be generous, okay?
Yeah, family, friends, coworkers. I think all of them love.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah,
great idea. I'm walking to work. I'm listening to music anyway. Why not hear something that I know my daughter or my nephew or I love this idea. It's filling in the gaps between my time with them in a different way than just say a group. It's serving the function of a group chat, to be perfectly honest, but in a more emotionally resonant way. So I'm all in, man.
I think I'm pretty convinced as well. So thank you so much for coming on. We really enjoy our time with you, and I would wish you luck, but I don't really think you need a wish of luck. So keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it.